There's a moment almost everyone has experienced. You touch something hot, and your hand pulls back before you've even registered pain. You're driving, and you brake before you consciously realize why. Someone raises a hand near your face too quickly, and you flinch before any thought forms at all. Your mind didn't decide any of that. Your body did, on its own, faster than thought itself. And the reason it can do that isn't modern reflex training or coincidence. It's because your body has been rehearsing these exact reactions for longer than your species has even had a word for memory. Today we're going to look at the survival programs still running inside you. Right now, ones your conscious mind has completely forgotten, but your body absolutely has not. Let's start with the basic mechanism because it explains almost everything that follows. Not every reaction in your body travels through your brain first. Some of them travel through something called a reflex arc, a shortcut that runs from a sensory nerve directly to your spinal cord and back out to a muscle, without waiting for your brain to process what's happening at all. This is why pulling your hand off a hot stove happens before you feel pain. The pain signal is still traveling toward your brain while your hand is already moving away, because the danger signal took the faster route through your spinal cord instead. Your brain finds out what happened after your body has already handled it. This system didn't evolve for stoves. It evolved for a world where the space between noticing danger and reacting to it was often the entire difference between living and not living. Early humans who had faster reflex arcs, whose bodies acted before conscious thought could even form, survived encounters that slower-reacting individuals simply didn't. Over hundreds of thousands of years, that speed became permanently built into human physiology, not as a skill you learn, but as hardware you're born with. Now here's where it gets more interesting, because reflexes are just the most obvious layer. Underneath that is something even older and stranger. Your body's ability to remember fear itself, completely separate from your conscious memory of the event that caused it. There's a well-documented phenomenon in trauma research called somatic memory, the idea that the body can retain a physical response to a threatening experience even when the conscious mind has little or no clear memory of the specific event. People have reported flinching, tensing, or feeling sudden anxiety in situations that physically resemble a past danger, car accidents, falls, close calls, without immediately understanding why. The body reacted first. The explanation, if it comes at all, comes later, and sometimes it never fully comes. This isn't limited to personal trauma either. There's a broader theory that certain fear responses are so ancient and so consistently useful across human history that they've become built into our biology before we're even born, without requiring any personal bad experience to trigger them at all. The fear of snakes is one of the clearest examples researchers point to. Multiple studies using infants far too young to have learned anything about snakes through experience or storytelling have found that babies show measurable stress responses, faster heart rate, dilated pupils, when shown images of snakes compared to neutral objects of similar size and shape. Some researchers argue this points to a pre-wired, evolutionarily inherited fear circuit, not something learned in this lifetime at all, but something closer to an ancient warning passed down through the structure of the brain itself. Think about what that actually means. You could go your entire life never having a single bad experience with a snake, and some part of your nervous system would still respond to one faster and more strongly than it responds to genuinely modern dangers like electrical outlets or moving vehicles, threats that are statistically far more likely to harm you today. Your body isn't tracking modern risk. It's still running risk assessments calibrated for an environment that stopped existing tens of thousands of years ago. This raises an obvious question. If your body is still defending against threats from an ancient world, what else is it quietly remembering that your conscious mind never learned in the first place? One candidate is your reaction to heights. Fear of falling appears extremely early in human infants, often before a baby has ever actually experienced a serious fall. Researchers studying infant development have used a setup called the visual cliff, a table with a clear glass extension creating the illusion of a sudden drop, and found that most crawling infants refuse to cross onto the glass, even when their own mother is calling them from the other side, even though nothing about the situation has ever physically harmed them before. This suggests the fear isn't purely learned through personal experience of falling and getting hurt. It appears to be substantially pre-installed, an inherited caution around edges and heights that would have been extraordinarily useful for a species that spent enormous stretches of its evolutionary history navigating cliffs, trees, and uneven terrain without any safety equipment whatsoever. Your body remembers falling being dangerous before you personally ever fell. There's another layer to this that's less about specific fears and more about a general orientation toward the world, your body's baseline tension level, and how quickly it can shift into full alert. Researchers studying stress physiology have found that humans carry what's sometimes called an allostatic baseline, a kind of default resting tension level that isn't actually neutral at all, but is instead calibrated somewhere between full relaxation and readiness to react. This baseline appears to be influenced by both individual experience and something deeper, an inherited tendency toward vigilance that some researchers argue reflects thousands of generations spent in genuinely unpredictable, threat-dense environments. In simpler terms, your resting state isn't actually as relaxed as it feels. Some portion of your nervous system, even while you're sitting comfortably reading or watching something entertaining, is quietly running background monitoring, ready to escalate instantly if needed. You don't notice this most of the time because it's meant to be unnoticeable. It's only supposed to become obvious the moment something requires it, and when that moment comes, it responds instantly precisely because it was never fully off in the first place. This connects to something almost everyone has felt but rarely examines closely: the sensation of suddenly feeling unsafe in a place you've been perfectly comfortable in 100 times before, with no clear external reason. Researchers believe this can happen when your body's ancient threat monitoring system picks up on some subtle environmental cue, a change in light, an unusual smell, an unexpected silence, well before your conscious mind consciously registers what changed at all. You feel the alarm before you can explain the alarm, because the system generating that feeling was never designed to explain itself. It was designed to act first. There's a particularly strange example of this worth mentioning: the startle response to sudden loud noises, sometimes called the acoustic startle reflex. This reaction is remarkably consistent across virtually the entire human species, and even across many other animal species as well, involving an extremely fast, involuntary full-body flinch in response to sudden, unexpected sound. Researchers have measured this reflex occurring in as little as 1/10 of a second, faster than you could possibly think the thought that was loud. What makes this particularly interesting is that the intensity of your startle response can actually be measured and used as an indicator of your current baseline stress level. People under chronic stress, anxiety, or an unfamiliar or unsafe feeling environment show measurably stronger, faster startle reflexes than people in calm, familiar, safe settings. Your body is constantly recalibrating exactly how much readiness to keep on standby, based on cues you're not consciously tracking at all. So, what is your body actually remembering if not specific personal events? The most accurate answer might be that it's remembering patterns, not memories in the traditional sense, but deeply encoded statistical shortcuts built from an almost unimaginable number of ancestral experiences, compressed down into instinct. Every fear response you carry that you never personally learned represents, in a real sense, the accumulated experience of every ancestor before you who encountered a similar situation and survived it, passed down not as a story or a lesson, but as a physical predisposition written directly into how your nervous system responds before conscious thought even has a chance to weigh in. This is genuinely different from how we usually think about memory. You don't remember the specific ancestor who first learned that snakes were dangerous, or the specific fall that first taught your species to fear heights, or the specific predator encounter that made silence feel threatening. None of those individual memories survived. What survived was the response itself, stripped of its original context, running quietly in the background of every human body ever born since. This is why understanding your own instinctive reactions matters more than most people realize. That unexplained tension in a certain room, that flinch at a sound before you know what it was, that hesitation near an edge you know is actually safe. None of it is irrational, even when it feels disconnected from anything happening in your actual life right now. It's evidence, physical and undeniable, that you're carrying something forward, something older than your own memory, older than language, older in some cases than your own species in its current form. Your mind forgets almost everything eventually. Specific days blur together. Conversations fade. Even major life events soften and lose detail over years and decades. But your body, in a very real physiological sense, doesn't forget nearly as easily because it was never relying on conscious memory to begin with. It was built to react correctly without needing to remember why the reaction exists at all. So the next time your body reacts to something before your mind is caught up, before you've consciously identified any actual danger, take that reaction seriously, even if you can't explain it. You're not being irrational. You're not overreacting to nothing. You're experiencing the output of a system built across hundreds of thousands of years of trial and error, refined by every ancestor who reacted correctly enough, often enough, to survive long enough to eventually contribute to you existing at all. Your mind forgot the specific reasons a long time ago. Your body never did. Have you ever had a reaction like this? A flinch, a fear, a sudden unease that you couldn't explain but somehow knew you had to listen to? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to know why some people seem to have this instinct stronger than others and what that actually means, that video's right here. See you in the next one.